January 1, 2027, 8 a.m. Every television broadcast went black. Every radio station fell silent. Every phone vibrated. For 13 seconds, the country heard nothing. Then, every screen displayed the same message. Effective immediately, all physical cash is no longer recognized as legal tender. Beginning today, all transactions must be completed through approved digital payment systems. There was no countdown, no exchange period, no warning, just one sentence that ended nearly 3,000 years of physical money. Across America, people instinctively reached for their wallets. Some laughed, others assumed it was a mistake, until they tried to use it. A taxi driver watched his first customer walk away. Neither of them understood why. A waitress held a $100 bill that had lost its purpose while still sitting in her hand. Parents opened birthday cards only to discover the cash inside had become nothing more than decorated paper. Meanwhile, ATMs continued dispensing fresh banknotes for another 43 minutes. People stood in line, withdrawing money that had already stopped being money. The machines didn't know. Neither did the people. By sunset, nearly every American still had money. But for the first time in modern history, almost nobody could actually hold it. So how did the oldest payment system on Earth end before lunchtime? Every generation believes its financial system is permanent. Every generation is eventually proven wrong. This is Finance Unrated, a documentary series investigating the futures that haven't happened but already have a path leading toward them. To understand why cash disappeared, we have to go back. Because this story didn't begin in 2027. It began the first time convenience became more valuable than cash itself. Most people believed cash disappeared because technology replaced it. History tells a different story. Cash disappeared because almost nobody depended on it anymore. That happened quietly. One tap instead of a swipe. One phone instead of a wallet. One QR code instead of loose change. Each decision felt insignificant. No one woke up thinking, I'm helping eliminate cash. They simply chose the faster option. Year after year, that choice repeated itself. Coffee, groceries, parking, restaurant bills, online shopping, salary payments, tax refunds, even donations. Cash never lost the competition. People simply stopped choosing it. By the middle of the decade, entire neighborhoods could go days without a single paper bill changing hands. Governments noticed, banks noticed, technology companies noticed. They all reached the same conclusion. If almost everyone already lived digitally, why maintain two financial systems? It sounded efficient, logical, even inevitable, until the switch was finally flipped. And within the very first hour, the country discovered the problem wasn't losing cash. It was discovering who could still reach their money. The first institutions to reopen weren't banks. They were customer support centers. Millions of people weren't asking, where did my money go? They were asking, why can't I use it? Because the money hadn't disappeared. Access had. If your phone worked, you barely noticed the change. You bought coffee, paid for fuel, ordered lunch. The economy kept moving. But if your phone battery died, your internet failed, or your identity couldn't be verified, your money became unreachable. For the first time in history, wealth wasn't defined by what you owned. It was defined by what you could connect to. The divide wasn't rich versus poor. It was connected versus disconnected. And the first people to discover that weren't the people most viewers would expect. They were tourists, visitors carrying foreign cash. Their wallets were full, yet overnight, they couldn't buy a bottle of water. Next came the elderly, who had spent decades trusting paper more than screens. Then small businesses, still operating with handwritten receipts and cash drawers. Within hours, some of the country's busiest places had become strangely quiet. Barbershops, food trucks, weekend flea markets, neighborhood fruit stands, not because customers disappeared, because the way they accepted trust had disappeared. But that wasn't the biggest surprise. The biggest surprise was how quickly everyone else adapted, and history explains why. A week later, the panic was over. Phones had become wallets. Watches had become wallets. Cars had become wallets. People laughed at how frightening the first day had seemed. Human beings adapt remarkably fast. We've done it before. Checks gave way to cards. Cards gave way to phones. Every new payment system felt uncomfortable until it became invisible. This time, the transition seemed even smoother, until a storm crossed the Midwest. Nothing extraordinary, just strong winds. Power lines fell, cell towers shut down. Several counties lost communication for just 17 minutes. 17 minutes, that was all. Hospitals stayed open using backup power. Emergency services kept operating. The stock market never even noticed. But across those counties, millions of ordinary purchases simply stopped. Gas pumps, parking garages, vending machines, self-checkout lanes, coffee shops. Every place waiting for one thing, an authorization. People still had money. Businesses still had goods. But for 17 minutes, trust had nowhere to travel. The outage became the shortest financial crisis that almost nobody remembered. Yet economists studied it for years, not because of what failed, but because of what it revealed. The system worked perfectly, until everyone depended on the same system. And that raised a much bigger question. If every dollar now lived inside a digital network, who truly controlled the network itself? The economy hadn't collapsed. Quite the opposite. Payments settled faster than ever. Tax refunds arrived in minutes. Payroll cleared instantly. International transfers that once took days finished before people refreshed their screens. From almost every measurable perspective, the new system was working. But something fundamental had changed. For thousands of years, money had been something you possessed. A coin, a banknote, a bar of gold. If it was in your hand, it was yours to exchange. Now, money existed only as information, a balance, protected by passwords, verified by identities, moved through networks, stored on systems you couldn't see. Ownership had quietly become access, and access depended on infrastructure, electricity, telecommunications, cloud servers, banks, payment processors, identity systems. None of those systems had to fail completely to change someone's day. A forgotten password, a locked account, a software bug, a regional outage. The money still existed, but reaching it was no longer entirely up to you. Around the world, central banks had already been researching digital currencies. Governments had been building faster payment rails. Banks had invested billions into real-time settlement, not because they wanted to eliminate freedom, because they wanted to eliminate friction. History has always rewarded faster systems, but history also leaves behind something else. Dependencies. The question was no longer whether digital money worked. It clearly did. The real question was who now controlled access to it. 1 year later, children recognized paper money the way earlier generations recognized typewriters. Something their parents once used. Wallet manufacturers had quietly changed their business. Coins survived mostly in museums. Cash registers had become digital terminals. The question, "Do you have any cash?" had almost disappeared. Entire industries had reinvented themselves. Street performers displayed payment codes instead of open guitar cases. Farmers accepted instant transfers before handing over fresh produce. Emergency aid reached disaster victims within seconds instead of days. For billions of people, life had become undeniably easier. The experiment had solved real problems. Counterfeit currency had nearly vanished. Cross-border payments had become almost instant. Government benefits reached recipients faster. Small online businesses could sell to customers anywhere in the world. The future wasn't dystopian, it was efficient. But beneath every improvement, one ancient idea had quietly disappeared. Humanity hadn't just changed how it used money. It had changed what money actually was. For most of history, money was something you carried. Now, it was something you requested access to. And those two ideas would never be exactly the same again. History rarely announces its biggest turning points. They don't arrive with fireworks. They arrive disguised as convenience. Paper replaced metal. Cards replaced paper. Phones replaced cards. Each step felt small. Each step felt reasonable. Until one morning, the destination was already behind us. Maybe this future never arrives. Maybe it unfolds far more slowly. Or maybe, one ordinary day, without anyone declaring a revolution, we simply wake up and realize we've already crossed into it. If money ever becomes completely digital, the greatest question may not be whether we'll trust the technology. It may be whether we'll remember why money became physical in the first place. October 14th, 2028, 9:30 a.m. The announcement lasted just 6 minutes. By lunchtime, every American had discovered their credit score no longer existed, not because it had been deleted, because something far more powerful had replaced it.